So here's a wild thought. How would you even know if your own beliefs, the very ideas that make you, are actually trapping you? Today, we're diving into two incredible master keys for mental freedom, handed down to us by a couple of philosophical heavyweights, Immanuel Kant and G.W.F. Hegel. I mean, really think about that for a second. It's a pretty jarring idea, right? That the very framework of your reality, your values, your politics, your gut feelings about the world might actually be invisible bars, a cage you've been locked in without ever realizing it.
And that's the million-dollar question. Because a perfect prison is one where the inmate doesn't even know they're an inmate. So how do you spot the bars when they're invisible? Well, this problem isn't new. In fact, one of the most powerful ways to think about it comes from over 2,000 years ago. All right, so our journey begins with one of the most famous allegories in all of philosophy, Plato's cave. And trust me, this is way more than just a story. It's basically a blueprint for how entire societies can get trapped inside a shared illusion. Okay, so picture this. You've got a group of people who, since birth, have been chained up inside a deep, dark cave. They're all facing a flat wall, and they can't even turn their heads. All they have ever seen, their entire life, are these flickering shadows dancing on the stone in front of them. Now, for these prisoners, those little two-dimensional shapes aren't just shadows, they are reality. That's the whole universe. They give the shadows names, they argue about their movements, they've built their entire world from this puppet show. It's not a limited view of the world for them, it's the only world they know.
But here's the kicker. Behind the prisoners, there's a big fire. And walking between the fire and the prisoners are these puppeteers, holding up different objects. They're the ones casting the shadows. They are literally manufacturing the reality that the prisoners accept without question.
And this is where Plato's story gets really powerful, and frankly a little terrifying. It shows how a small group, the puppeteers, can literally define what's real for everybody else. Knowledge isn't about freedom anymore, it's a tool for control. And the majority of people live their whole lives trapped, completely mistaking their prison for the entire world.
So, how do you get out? Well, let's jump into our first escape plan, this one coming from the philosopher Immanuel Kant. He looked at this whole cave problem and came up with a really radical idea. Stop looking for an exit outside. The key to your own cell, he said, is already inside your head. You see, Kant just completely flips Plato's concept on its head. For Plato, truth with a capital T is this thing that's out there, and only a few special philosopher kings can go see it. But Kant, he says, no. The basic structures for understanding reality, things like time, space, cause and effect, they aren't external. They're like this universal software that comes pre-installed in every single human mind. And this leads us to Kant's big idea for freedom, moral autonomy. It's this incredible concept that you, yes, you, have the ability, using your own reason, to figure out your own moral laws. You don't need a puppeteer or some ancient text to tell you what's right. Real freedom is being the author of your own moral code. So Kant basically hands us this amazing toolkit for breaking out. The core of it is universal reason. Since we all have the same basic mental software, no elite group can claim they have some special access to the truth. He also gives us something called the categorical imperative, which is like an internal BS detector for moral questions. And finally, critical thinking becomes our ultimate shield against any dogma the puppeteers try to throw at us. Okay, now for a totally different approach. Let's look at our second escape plan, this one from G.W.F. Hegel. For Hegel, just having one prisoner break out and run for the hills isn't the whole story. For him, the real escape is a massive historical project that involves, well, everyone. You see, Hegel's big idea is that ideas aren't these static, unchanging things. They're alive, they grow, and they change, usually through conflict over huge stretches of time. So for him, freedom isn't a place you just arrive at one day. It's more like humanity's consciousness, slowly and often painfully, waking up over the Graham stage of history. And he said history has an engine that drives it forward. He called it the dialectic. It's a three-step dance. You start with a thesis. That's the established idea, the status quo, like a kingdom ruled by a monarch. This idea eventually creates its own opposite, an antithesis, a conflicting idea, like the demand for individual liberty. And when these two clash, they don't just cancel each other out. They create a synthesis, something new and more complex, like a constitutional democracy. And then, that synthesis becomes the new thesis, and the whole process starts all over again.
So the bottom line for Hegel is that everything, our laws, our governments, our wars, our revolutions, it's all part of this one epic story. And the plot of that story, it's humanity, slowly, generation by generation, becoming more and more aware of what freedom actually is. The escape from the cave isn't just a personal choice, it's a collective journey we're all on together.
So now we have these two really powerful, but very different strategies for liberation. One is all about the power of the individual mind, and the other is about the huge, sweeping story of history. So let's put them side by side and see how they really stack up.
The difference is pretty stark when you look at it like this, right? For Kant, the idea that matters is subjective, it's inside your mind. For Hegel, it's objective, a real force out there shaping the world. Kant's path to freedom is totally individual. You do it yourself. Hegel's is collective. We all do it together over time. The biggest danger for Kant is dogmatism, just blindly accepting ideas. For Hegel, the danger is alienation, feeling like you're disconnected from this grand historical story. It really boils down to this. Kant hands you the key to your own personal cell. Hegel gives you a map of the entire prison complex and shows you how it's slowly but surely being transformed.
Okay, let's bring all this back home, to right here, right now. Because this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. Plato's cave is all around us. So how do we actually use these escape plans to deal with the modern prison of ideas?
So what are the shadows on the wall today? Well, they're the big, powerful ideologies that are often presented to us as just common sense. Think about ideas like economic progress is the only thing that matters, or feelings of national superiority, or the belief in absolute market efficiency. These are the modern-day shadows, the narratives that shape our lives, often without us ever stopping to ask, hey, wait a minute, who's casting this shadow and why? And this really is the ultimate point from both Kant and Hegel. Freedom isn't about living in a world with no ideas, no beliefs. That's impossible. The real goal is to go from being a prisoner of your ideas to being the master of them. It's about consciously choosing them, questioning them, and understanding the power they have over your life and over history itself.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Take a hard look at the big ideas that steer your life, your beliefs about success, about community, about what's meaningful. And ask yourself honestly, which of these ideas are tools that you are using and which ones are masters that you are serving? Answering that question, that's the first real step out of the cave.